a little bit about how science education has changed in California, starting with how you used to teach science compared to today.
Well, I'll say some of the way I used to teach science will be part of what I call the next generation new science standards, what we're calling the renaissance of science education in California through the new standards and the new framework. So I did more hands-on learning and labs, more field trips, take my students out just around the fields and woods near the campus to look at the bugs and insects in the local ecology, or backpacking in the Sierra, whitewater rafting, climbing Half Dome. So we did a lot of experiments, but then I saw that, and this is in the early 1970s, I saw the evolution of science education to be more rote memorization, more multiple choice testing, less hands-on learning, less real-world learning. So the experience I had, I could see that students got engaged, excited. I did everything I could to make it relevant, the chemistry, the biology, to things that were happening in the environment around them. And when we went on backpacking trips, we would talk about clear cutting versus lumber practices that would lead to sustainable forests. We talked about the pollution coming into the delta and the health of the salmon and the bass fisheries. So I had that kind of fun experience connecting students. And we had more field trip dollars back in those days too, which that experiential, that way of students knowing firsthand, going to the tide pools or Steinhardt Aquarium, going places and seeing the environment made it more relevant and real. So I'm believing that we will now, with these new national science standards, come back to part of that, but also go to a new and higher, better level than ever before.
So give us an overarching view of what are these new standards. Explain them for the average parent out there, please.
Sure. Well, first, it's less rote memorization and less bubble, fill in the bubbles and multiple choice questions. It is hands-on. It's having projects that integrate all the sciences. It's not biology in a vacuum or a silo by itself. It's not chemistry by itself. It's not physical sciences by itself. It integrates everything. Like on global warming, you'll be able to talk about everything from the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, the acidification of the ocean, but you'll also talk about solutions and why some people believe it's man-caused, human-caused global warming, and why others don't believe that there is such a thing as climate change due to human activity. So it's engaging students in politics and history and chemistry and physics all at once. So that's part of it. The other part of it is working in teams on projects that are relevant to the real world. So students see more than they ever have in the past with this new adoption of these new frameworks and standards, the relevance of issues and how they connect to each other and to the real world. So I'm excited about that part of it. You're also going to see more of an emphasis on environmental literacy, and so we're looking at the need for more engineers to come out of our high schools and colleges to go to work in engineering fields and technical fields. But we also have a huge need for all students who graduate, all young people who will become adults who will vote and make consumer decisions. So understanding science and what they could do to lessen the carbon load on the atmosphere, what they could do to help preserve our water supply. These are kinds of lessons that the new generation science standards will give our students a chance to understand and leave high school and go on to work, go on to college with a deeper understanding of the policy issues and how they individually can make a difference.
Can you give us an idea of the timeline for the state of California for implementing the standards?
Yes, it's been a while. The new standards come from 1998 to just 3 years ago. So it's been a long journey to transform the old standards, which were last modified in 1998. And then it took 3 years to get them to be adopted by the State Board of Education. And then it took another 3 years to get the framework adopted, which just happened this past November. So we're excited that that big milestone event occurred. The State Board of Education adopted the framework. And right now, science teachers around the state are getting professional development, are seeking curriculum. Textbook companies are starting to put curriculum and lesson plans together that will meet the frameworks and the standards of the new science. And good news is we're in Oakland today because Oakland District is one of 8, Oakland Unified School District is one of 8 districts in the state that were an early adopter. So their teachers here at Brewer Elementary School and other sites throughout Oakland have been sharing, doing professional development, creating lesson plans, and with much excitement and enthusiasm, bringing them online, making it real in these classrooms in this very school where we're visiting today.
Can you give us some examples of what you would see in a classroom and, for example, what we saw today inside the classroom?
Yes, well, what you'd see is you do not see a sage on the stage, teacher lecturing to 33 students. You don't see that. You see short talks and instruction, and then the students are organized not in rows looking up front, they're organized in teams of 3 and 4. And so you see that immediately, that there's an engagement process where you can check your ideas with another student. And you're not going to just keep asking the teacher for the answers and the teacher will keep giving you the answers. No, the teacher's going to say, what about this? Think of that. Why don't you look over here? Or the students themselves will be more engaged in that. What else would you see? You'd see more opportunity for hands-on learning. So we saw students working with magnets, taking a regular battery and some wire and a nail and making an electromagnetic magnet system and lifting things and doing graphs and charts. But they were manipulating, they were handling, they were pointing out, together their ideas as to what was happening and what the data meant that they were collecting. So I think those are 2 big things you'd see different. More teamwork, more talking, more working together, and more writing going along with that. Writing down what you see, writing down your hypothesis, writing down the evidence behind your arguments. This is, again, part of the new science standard, and it's more relevant and more fun.
And how does it change the role of the science teacher, something you know quite a bit about?
Well, I say this is something that teachers are welcoming, generally speaking. Teachers want some support and help with professional development, but it won't be that idea that the teacher reads a chapter in the science book, in a separate chemistry book or a separate biology book. They won't just be reading a chapter and then lecturing to the students and asking the students to take notes. The students are going to be asked to do experiments and projects. They're going to connect science and biology science and chemistry science and physical science to the real world, and that'll be exciting to them as well.
And who developed the new science education format?
Well, that's been an incredibly fruitful process, incredibly exciting process, because you had the best educators, the best scientists in California coming together to help create this effort. We've had 3,000 emails on these standards as they went through the process. I think we had about 30 different leaders in science education and science fields to put this together. So it came from a grassroots effort really to modernize our science, because we fell behind the rest of the world. We had the space race in the 60s, and we tried to lead the world in so many respects, and science got de-emphasized or put off to the side. And for the last dozen years, we've also had the focus on 2 subject matters, math and English language arts, at the expense of almost everything else. So science took a back seat, I think, over the last 10, 15 years, and now we're bringing it back. I call it a renaissance. It's an exciting renaissance of science education.
Have you heard from businesses that want these employees, that need these skills? Were they part of the factor in developing these new standards?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've had the LA Chamber of Commerce, David Rattray is their Vice President for Educational Issues, and other business associations, the Silicon Valley Foundation, Silicon Valley Leadership, San Francisco, Bay Area, San Francisco organization that works in the field of employment, Bay Area Council. They're excited. They know how important this is, and they've been strong supporters. In California, we've had less contention compared to other parts of the nation, which have fought over whether these are top-down, whether there's enough local input. The news here is that we had local input. We welcomed it. And it wasn't a partisan football. It wasn't about politics. It was what's best for our students, so they'll have the skill set when they get out of high school to be ready to go into a career path right away, or to go to college and then get into a career path. They'll have that skill set. And that's what employers want to see us produce, us create through our efforts here in the K-12 system, starting early, like here at Brewer Elementary School, all the way through to our universities.
And when will teachers and parents see these implemented across California?
These pilot programs that have been going in the 18 districts, including, again, the early adoption by the Oakland Unified District, that's happening right now. The professional development will be happening this spring, more professional development. My department, California Department of Education, will be doing dozens of workshops around the state, sharing how districts can implement, how they can do professional development, and how they can take some of their local control money that they have under the local control funding formula and dedicate it, like Oakland has done. About half of the funding for Oakland's implementation of the science standards has come from the district, saying this is a priority. And I urge superintendents and I urge school board members throughout the state to set these new national science standards as a top priority and to make it a priority in the budget, so there's actually money to do the professional development. Again, the standards were developed about 3 years ago, and last November the framework on how to get the standards towards implementation was adopted last November. And now we're in the phase of implementing more actual curriculum, lesson plans that teachers will share. My department's developing a website where best lesson plans can be shared. So we're excited about that. And then we will be, besides doing workshops and professional development ourselves, we will be doing a pilot test this spring, a pilot assessment, not paper and pencil, which is the old way, but on computers. And that will reach all the students in California that are going to be eligible to take these science courses and then take these science assessments. And then the year after, we will have a field test. The data that we're seeking, the feedback we're hoping for, will be in the assessments 2 years from now on the broad field test, and then it'll be up and going into the future.
And just a quick question on funding, because I know you mentioned that Oakland was using its LCFF funds to implement this,
yes.
Correct? Is that going to be, can you talk a little bit about the funding model, how that's going to be approached statewide?
I think it'll be varied statewide. I'm hoping the legislature and the governor would prioritize to have some one-time money that could go into this effort, because that was done with the Common Core Math and English Language Arts. That was also done with the previous standards. Again, a decade to a decade and a half ago, there was state investment in helping implement. I'm hoping there's more, but the governor has, and the legislature has set up a framework where there's more money coming to the local level, and what we anticipate, what we hope, what we think is needed, is that they will prioritize some of those dollars that are in their local accountability plan. And we think parents and businesses and community groups in each community and each school district in California will want to see this kind of investment. We want them to prioritize the money and dedicate it. They may find, we're hoping they will find partners. So Bechtel Foundation is a big partner here in Oakland in making sure that there's professional development and equipment that the teachers need to teach the science subjects. So we're hoping that there will be other businesses and philanthropy statewide that will step up and be a partner in this critically important investment.
We had a question in terms of per pupil spending. How does California match up when you compare us to the rest of the nation?
We have increased our per pupil spending since the recession. The recession was a terrible blow to public education in California. We had 30,000 teachers laid off. Class sizes mushroomed, got bigger. Science was put on the sidelines. Art and music and drama were put on the sidelines. Civics was put on the sidelines. So we've seen a restoration of some of that funding. But even that being said, I just want to give you some comparisons. We're about 45th in the nation in per pupil spending. And for a state of the wealth and capacity of California, with the creativity and innovation economy that's here, how could we be 45th in the nation? To me, it's a disgrace. It's not where California should be. It's not where we were historically. We've been a leader in education, and we need to come back in not just being a leader as we are in the national science standards and some of the other creative programs we're putting together, but a leader also in prioritizing spending for education. Comparison is just looking at a few years back in California, we were spending about $8,000 per pupil. New Jersey, New York, and some other eastern states were spending $22,000 per pupil. Idaho was spending $15,000 per pupil, twice what California was spending. So this is not right and needs to be changed, and we need to work together, look together for ways to support our schools even more financially. I believe that our teachers are doing a fantastic job, our administrators and school board members are doing a great job with the resources they have, and they're really focused on delivering the best education possible for these students. But I know and they know they could do so much more if they had more resources, if they had more lab equipment, career technical education equipment, that they could get students even more engaged and more successful leaving high school.
That was a really interesting answer, and it kind of, I assume it's going to kind of tie into this next one, but what do you see the greatest challenge facing California schools in the coming years, in your opinion?
It's an ongoing challenge, and I would say just maintaining and growing the public confidence in the public education system of California, and to see the exciting and innovative things going on in our classrooms, to see creative teachers, inspiring teachers, kids engaged. And so when I come away from a school visit like I'm here today at Brewer Elementary School, I'm jazzed, I'm inspired, because I see the future of these students' lives being enhanced by what's going on in our classrooms. So we want to, do everything we can to have the public support education, to highlight, what good things are going on, to put a spotlight on the great things going on. And when that happens, I think then as different measures come before the voters, ballot measures for money for, say, the school bonds, the voters just passed Prop 51, so that was really great. They just passed Prop 55. It was the Prop 51s for school construction. That's $9 billion. Prop 55 is $6 to $8 billion a year, vitally important. And so I think we need to keep that positive energy going. And so there are always going to be critics, and I think what we see is committed, 330,000 teachers in the state. That's their profession is to improve the lives of kids, to help them reach their dreams, to help their parents fulfill their dreams for their children. And those teachers and those administrators and those school board members, they're going to keep doing good things, and we just want to keep a spotlight on it and share the good news. There's a lot of great things going on. Our career education programs are taking off. Our science, new national science standards are taking off. Art, music, and drama have been coming back. So we see a positive transformation.
And on that positive note, my last question is how is California different and unique than the rest of the nation? Where are we the leader?
Well, one thing is, again, we've reached out to the community leaders, to the PTA, to the businesses and industry leaders of California, and said these changes are good. These are not from on high, from Washington, D.C. These are changes that superintendents of states like myself, governors of states, got together and said, we're not being in the place where we need to be. We're not globally competitive the way we used to be in so many different fronts. And so what we did in California is we all rallied behind the good that we saw, the potential we saw in the new Common Core standards, and now in the new National Science Standards and the new Social Studies, Social Sciences Standards, English Language Development Standards. So we're innovating and really at the cutting edge nationwide in the adoption of many of these standards and having a modern, progressive education for our students.